All right, welcome everyone. We're about to get started. Our guest is in the building. I want to give you a chance to get in place, to talk to us in the chat, to load in. Greetings to you, sis. So glad you're here. You don't want to, this is going to be a great one. Tell your friends. Our guest is in the building, and we are getting ready to get started with this conversation. I don't want to take too much time, but I want to give you all some time to get into the room. Well, I'm using this music, of course, as an inspiration for our brother who I'm about to bring on, our brother Nine Feathers. I love calling him Nine Feathers. Um, and he's known as the Honorable Shariff Nine Feathers Bay. He is an ambassador of the First Council of the Moorish American Chancellery and Consulate at North Asia. He is also the chairman and CEO of the Moorish American Travel Document Company. We'll learn more about that today. His mission is to give lawful remedy to all American natives by helping them properly identify themselves internationally with high quality identification documents, and also various other products to aid in our day-to-day protection. Of course, I am your host today, your facilitator, your sister, your Juicy Spirit Mama, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Mama, the priestess of purpose, pleasure, passion, and profits. And I'm here today to hold this space as we continue to elevate the voices of the divine masculine so that we can continue to elevate the legacy in our families and in our own divine feminine selves. And so I'm honored to bring, he was here. He I don't know, he must have tapped out to come back in, but he was sitting here ahead of time. And that's okay. That's perfect setup for us to go on and get started. I was just about to bring him to the stage, and he dropped out. And so I know he'll be back because he was trying to make sure that you all could hear him. So I know he'll be back on, but I loved the intro that I did. And I guess because this will help you to get your questions. If you have anyone in your family, any men that you know who have been prohibited from traveling or just concerned about traveling, this is one service that our brother offers. However, today we are talking about men who lead nations. Do we still even believe in a head of a household? You know, there's the head of a household. What does that really mean to us as the divine feminine? You know, sensuality is good, right? Sensuality is an amazing thing. A lot of people love to do the work with me around juicy. But when a woman is tired, fatigued, worried, or stressed out, it's very difficult to maintain that juiciness, that softness, that divine feminine. And sure, we can build our own businesses, and many of us are building our own families, even. And we've seen a model of the big mama, the big mama that leads the house. And many of us have not even seen or heard the voice of the masculine in a healthy way, a way that offers us collaboration, a way that offers us to be built from the inside out. And so when we talk about men in leadership, we last week or last a few weeks ago, we had on our Baba talking about male female imbalances and how they manifest in the body. So now we are bringing on our dear brother. I just did a quick introduction of you, brother Nine Feathers. I had a beautiful slideshow showing who you are. I hear a little echo in your mic if you have me on speaker.
No, I don't have you on speaker. I actually have you on my earphones. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just had an unexpected cutoff and I was getting frustrated. As you know, you all know that I'm over here at China, and sometimes the algorithms with various systems that's back there at America don't quite line up.
Well, I
But
didn't get a chance to tell them yet that our brother is sacrificing a little sleep to join us today, um, because I think he's ahead of almost a full day ahead of us.
I'm actually 12 hours ahead of Eastern time.
Okay.
So it is actually 1:06 a.m. Friday,
Okay.
right? So
So we're
thank
going
you.
to get started. I did an introduction of what you do, and we'll get into that. I even have some video to cut in of you doing your marvelous teaching in a moment. But before we get to the Mahdi, I'm laying the foundation because most of the sisters in my community, in my tribe, are identified through their divine feminine. Are you all hearing the echo?
Are you
No.
all hearing an echo from me, from my
No,
side?
no, no echo from you. I'm only hearing it on my mic.
All right.
Let me see. Testing. I did. Let me make sure I do the. Okay, I know it cancels out that echo. So, uh, okay, so someone said yes, there is an echo. Okay. Yep. All right. Sounds like it's going down a little bit. But I want our brother Nine Feathers to do most of the talking anyway, so I'll fix it. Yeah, I know it went away, then it came back. I hear it. So I'm hearing exactly what you all are hearing. No worries. I'll fix it in a moment. I don't want it to throw us off, because what happens is whenever you're getting ready to do um, powerful conversations.
Wow, that was a real echo right there.
Yeah, I hear it.
I need to sample that in one of my songs.
Okay. All right. It does kind of sound like a mix.
Right. Sounds like we're floating out in space.
Okay, so 1 second. Let me just fix something here because
There's a button for echo.
yeah, I know. I went to it, but it's okay. Here we go.
All right. There we are.
Okay, I did it, but I'm gonna go out and come back in. Okay. All right, I don't
All
hear
right,
it.
I don't hear it.
All right, we
So
should be set, right?
yes, so
Yeah,
my brother
so
is
my brother
here,
is here,
and
and
Yes,
we
my
are
sister is here.
we are
we
looking
are
at
looking
men
at
in
men
leadership
in leadership
today,
today,
particularly men who
particularly
lead
men who lead
nations.
nations.
And I wanted
And I
to
wanted
bring
to
you and
bring
add
you
you
and
to the
add you
lineup,
to the
brother,
lineup, brother,
because
because
oftentimes women are
oftentimes women
doing
are
their work
doing their
around the
work
divine
around the divine
feminine.
feminine.
However,
However,
we
we
oftentimes don't hear
oftentimes don't
enough
hear enough
of what the
of what
divine
the divine
masculine
masculine
sounds like.
sounds like.
And then
Right.
Then
in our
in our
so-called spiritual
so-called
conscious
spiritual conscious
communities, there
communities,
is an
there is an
energy
energy
sometimes of
sometimes of
that's
that's
predatory. So
predatory.
then
So then
trust is
trust is
easily
easily
broken.
broken.
So
So
because you work
because you
with
work with
identification in
identification
the
in the
physical
physical
energy
energy
of
of
supporting a
supporting
lot of
a lot
us
of
who
us
claim
who
our
claim
true
our true
identity,
identity,
I
I
wanted to
wanted to
invite you
invite you
to,
to
I'm going to
I'm
fix
gonna
it.
fix it.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you
I'm just
all.
going to
I'm
get
just
the
gonna get
intro
the
out.
intro
I'll
out.
fix
I'll
it
fix it
so that
so
brother,
that
not
brother
as
not
long as
as
he's
long as
clear.
he's clear.
I wanted you
I
to
wanted
tell
you to
us a
tell
little
us a
bit
little
about
bit
how
about
who you
who
are,
you are,
why you are
why you
nine
are nine
feathers, and how
feathers,
you
and
got
how you
to
got to
North Asia.
North Asia.
Uh-oh. Now your mic is doing something. Now we can't hear you.
Hear
You were-
me
I heard
now?
I
you
heard you
say a few
say a
things.
few things.
Now? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Yeah.
yes, go
Yes.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So, I am Sharif Nine Feathers Bay. I'm originally from Illinois, that whole area. That is my home. So I am from an area that has a lot of, been known to have a lot of pyramid mounds. Many of the big ones were bulldozed over when they did a lot of construction for highways and things like that. But with that being said, I come from a very spiritual place at America, and I've always had a spiritual sense that I had to do something more meaningful in my life and to set an example, not just for others first, but also for myself, because I had a lot of things that I had to learn. You know, this whole thing has been pretty much a growing process for me, and it's just happened in stages of development. And I'm originally a construction worker. I'm a carpenter, and that is my skilled trade. And I became a master carpenter. And I got a chance to come over here to China by way of a scholarship. And this was after I was already in the construction industry, but I got a chance to come here on a scholarship, and I decided to study the Chinese language. And after getting a good grip of the language, after several years, I became a construction expert here for American wood frame construction. So that was primarily what I've been doing at China, is teaching a lot of the Chinese architects and engineers how to build with how to build wood frame structures inside of concrete and inside of steel and this kind of thing, and also dealing with building science as it relates to the building envelope and also water protection and barriers, vapor barriers, and things like that. And during this whole time in this journey that I've been here, and I've been going all around the country to these different projects, I just wanted to find a more better way to present myself, being that I know my true identity, along with other Moors that are here at China. Some of them have already returned back, but I wanted us to be able to have a more correct way of presenting ourselves using our own identification here. So the first people to get the Moorish American travel document were actually members of a social media group that I started here at China, where I was teaching a lot of the information about our Aboriginal indigenous heritage, about our Moorish heritage and Moorish science. And I also did nationality processing for people that were in my social media group. And this is before anyone heard anything about me here, because I wasn't interested in getting on social media at that time and presenting myself to the people. I was simply working on myself and also working on the group of people that were here to make sure that we had the things that we need. And out of that came the Moorish American travel document, which had already been an idea that was given to me by the ancestors a few years prior to when I actually came out with the document. So approximately 4 years before I came out with the document, I had the idea that I was going to make something. But I thought I was going to make something that would be called a passport. But as I began to study more law, and I began to study de jure law and also color of law, I decided that not to call it a passport, to call it a travel document. And why? Because every passport is a travel document, right? But not every travel document is a passport. And when you do the research on what a passport is, and you also look at the history, you will find that a passport was originally not used for people, it was used for ships. And then you also find out that a passport is considered to be a war instrument. So I said, well, I can't call it a passport, so what am I going to call it? And that's how I eventually narrowed the name down to the Moorish American travel document, which is also called the MAT-D for short.
Well, I know that you. This is you've we've gone ahead to the MID because this is so much of your work. But I do want to build a little bit with you here,
Mm-hmm.
because you went to college, you studied abroad, you seem to have some identity. And men come to you all the time who can't travel, who don't have passports. And I see the brothers who make videos thanking you. And I know many people come to you who want to have a passport or a travel document
Right.
for so many reasons. And I wanted to deal with those reasons a little bit around identity in terms of masculine leadership. And you call yourself Nine Feathers. Not you call yourself, but I would imagine that you've gone through some spiritual process for identity. I know that when we first connected, it was the Choctaw kinship that spoke to
Yes.
me immediately. So how
Yes.
did you know
Yes.
who you were, brother Nine Feathers?
Well, are you saying as far as my ancestral lineage?
First your ancestral lineage, and then as your Moorish indigenous rights.
All right. As far as the ancestral lineage, this is something that I've known from my grandfather, and my great grandmother, his mother. She passed away when I was about 5 years old, but she was still pretty much a woman that was ingrained in the original Aboriginal Choctaw culture. My family, my maternal family, actually comes from Choctaw, Mississippi. So historically, my family owned a lot of land down in Choctaw, Mississippi, that is now been taken control of by a group of people that is called the Mississippi Band of Choctaws on that particular property. But that's another story for another time. But that is where my maternal lineage comes from, which was the capital of the Choctaw Nation, Dancing Rabbit Creek, on my mother's side. And I used to always hear my aunt talk about this particular lineage. And we didn't call it Choctaw, we call it Choctaw. So that's the original name. And that's what they would call it, was Choctaw, right? They didn't call it Choctaw. So coming up, I knew the original name, but it was later on that I found out that Choctaw and Choctaw is the same thing. That Choctaw is actually French. It's what the French decided to call us, right? So that is what I know as far as on my maternal lineage side, what I got from that.
And then how did you learn more about yourself as and more?
Well, this journey has been going on for quite a long time. I've always been a student of knowledge, a student of information, always intrigued with information about any kind of science and a lot of our ancestral history. I've always been intrigued with that. In my 20s, my early 20s, I would get a lot of information from off of the streets of Chicago and some other areas of Illinois, and that there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of street knowledge that's out there. And from then, I got a lot of information and a lot of training when I was in the Nation of Islam. So I went through my training in the Nation of Islam.
Wait, my feathers, I did not know that.
Yes, I was a member of the Nation of Islam, which taught me a lot of manhood training. So I got some good discipline training and manhood training there, which is a good grounds for knowing how to tackle leadership, really. And so that's how I was kind of groomed coming up in my I would say my mid 20s, and I just kept studying a lot of different information. I've come across information from Noble Drew Ali, but I didn't know how important the information that Noble Drew Ali brought to us, how important it was, until I ended up living abroad. So when I live abroad over here at China, it became very apparent that that if you want to be respected and move properly in a foreign land, that you need to have your real nationality. You really need to have your nationality and present yourself with your real nationality. You will find that when you're abroad, like for instance, you have many people that call themselves Americans, but it's kind of strange to other people that's in another country, because you have all these people calling themselves Americans, but they look different, they act different, they have different customs, right, or different cultures. So it's a little bit strange. So you always have to, I found myself having to clarify, and sometimes I still do, I have to clarify which American, or that I'm the true American, the Aboriginal descendant, the Aboriginal natives of the land.
Right.
And when I put that in Chinese terms to them, they overstand it and they get it immediately.
But our own people here don't get it. And I'm sorry about the echo, y'all, but I want to focus in on the energy here. I acknowledge that it's there. I've tried to fix it. I can't do it right now, but just listen past it.
Hmm.
What I that cues the piece around leadership, because then what has been done to our men here who don't know who they are, and the
Right.
effects it's had on our families.
Hmm. Right.
If you were to give any type of wisdom to someone who do not know anything about being an Aboriginal, indigenous to the land, and certainly not a Moor,
Right.
where would you start in a household to honor male leadership, or to or where do we even need to start, especially homes where that don't have a man?
Right. And for that reason, we have to start with the mother. You see,
Absolutely.
because the mother is the pivot point in which, or the axis in which, all of our community construction is built off of, is the woman. See, men, when we're children, we play with toys and we just do whatever we want to do. But as we get older, it turns out that most of what a man does is really to serve, to give service to the women, or
Mm,
to show something to the woman. Because honestly, most of us wouldn't work so hard, to try to get a nice car or a nice home if there were no women around. We'd just be satisfied with living outside in a tent. It's just a fact. But the world revolves around the woman, whether people want to agree with that or not. I think that there are a lot of men that would say things would be a lot different if we didn't have to live up to the expectations that women have in mind, of what a good man is, and what a man that is going to be a leader of a house is
mhm.
supposed to be like. Yeah.
So, that's right in the pocket of what we study as women, and, that we're first called.
Right.
And so it starts with the mother.
Right.
Okay.
And it's interesting that you said to also someone that doesn't have an understanding of their Aboriginal heritage. What we have to do is get into the state of mind of our ancestors sometimes, and just look at nature,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of science and a lot of information that we can draw from nature. And we have to look at what some of our ancestors did. Like, for instance, when we're talking about the Cherokee natives, pardon me, the Cherokee natives, they had what, 7 clans. So these 7 different clans, they all had a particular function within inside of the Cherokee Nation. I don't like to really use the word clan, but let's just say 7 groups. But the chief group and the largest group of the Cherokee is the Aniyanwaya, or Aniwaya, right? Waya means wolf. Ani means principal. So it was a principal wolf group, right? But why the wolf? Why is that? Why is that so important? Because when you talk about leadership and you understand that aspect of nature, there's keys there. Because in a wolf pack, it's the alpha female that is in the front, that leads the other wolf, that leads the whole pack. You see? And she makes sure that the weakest that are in her, under her care, in her group, which are really her own pups, are in the center of that particular line. So there's a ranking system there in which she governs, right? And as she becomes more seasoned in her leadership, either she or the alpha male leads from the back of the wolf pack.
Mm.
You see? So as they become more seasoned, and as the pups get older to where they're stronger and they can kind of pull their way, they kind of let their pups, it's like a training. They're training them to lead the pack, and then they'll go toward the back and lead from the back. You see? So there's a lot of science in that. And as far as leadership, I have said this to people before, that I'm really not here to lead the Moors in that way, in a way that Moors think that I'm to be a leader. I'm not the leader to, be all out in front and, come on, follow me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the leader that's leading from the back of the pack. I'm at the back of the wolf pack. That's why I give you the travel document, and then you go out there and use it yourself. You become a leader yourself when you have these tools that I give you. It's a psychology. You
Yeah.
see? Yeah.
What I like
What I
about
like about
what you've
what
done
you've
is you
done
didn't
is you
wait on
didn't wait on
permission,
permission,
and you
and
you you
you
simply used
simply
the
use
law.
the law.
And that's why
And
I
that's
asked
why I
you,
asked you,
where do
where
people
do
study?
people
Because some
study?
people
Because
have
some
no
people have
clue
no clue
about
about
my D.
my deed.
you
Right.
know
You
and
know,
and the first thing
and the
is,
first thing
some
is,
people who
some
hear
people who
Moors
hear
or
more
Moorish
or
anything,
Moorish
it's like, I'm
anything,
not
it's like,
trying
I'm
to
not
be a
trying to
Moor.
be a Moor.
Don't I
Don't
don't don't
Right.
don't share
don't
any of that
share
with
any of
me.
that with me.
But we're in,
But
I
we're
don't know
in.
if you
I don't know
know
if you
everything
know
that's going
everything that's
on
going
here in
on
the
here
state,
in the state.
because when I lived
Because when I
abroad,
lived abroad,
I was
I was
disconnected to a
disconnected
degree.
to a degree.
I was plugged
I was
into the
plugged
circles
into
and
the
the
circles and the
tribes that
tribes that
helped me to know
helped me
things,
to know things.
but
Right.
I
But
wasn't
I
bombarded
wasn't
like the
bombarded like
news
the news
bombards us
bombarded
here.
us here.
I mean,
I
with the whole
mean, with the whole
recession,
recession,
with the
with
message
the
that the
message that the
mainstream media
mainstream
is
media is
giving
giving
versus the real
versus the
truth of
real
what's
truth of
happening
what's
here,
happening here. Right.
people
Right.
are
People
going to
are
have to
going to
become
have to become
self-sustainable.
self-sustainable.
The
The
government
government
and
and
corporations are
corporations
pushing
are
you either
pushing you
to
either to
conform,
conform,
to live with
to
a
live
chip,
with a chip,
under
under
surveillance, and
surveillance,
all of
and
that,
all of that,
or
or
you have to
you
be
have
able
to
to
be
be
able to be
self-sustainable.
self-sustainable.
So
So
when I think
when I
about
think
you not
about you
asking
not
for
asking for
permission,
permission,
but
but
standing on the
standing on the
law,
law,
where would you
where
say
would you
one
say one
needs to
needs
begin
to
to
begin to
study to
study to
rise
rise
to the
to the
leadership that
leadership that
we've always
we've
had,
always
and
had, and
authority we've
authority
always
we've always
had as
had as
indigenous people
indigenous
native
people
to this
native to
land?
this land? That is a good question. And I'm so glad that you bring this up, because most people think that it requires a lot of study, that
Mm,
it requires a lot of study to be a good leader of self, right? What it really takes is more sincerity than anything else.
mm,
So if you have a lot of sincerity and you're really sincere about about what you want to do, and you're sincere about presenting yourself for being who and what the Most High has brought you here to be, then that's going to be more than half of the battle. You see, because everyone doesn't have to become a bookworm in order to be able to move out effectively. Because in reality, we should be setting up support teams so that everyone wouldn't have to go out here and feel like they have to become a lawyer just so that they can just walk down the street. That's not the goal. So what I've done, and I said to myself, making a Moorish American travel document, I said, well, everyone can't, they can't remember all of the information verbatim. They can't remember all of the laws. They can't remember Article 6, right? They can't remember some of this stuff when they run into any kind of trouble. So I'm just going to put that stuff inside of the booklet. I'm just going to put it inside of the travel document. So it becomes like a pocket guide. It becomes like a pocket study guide and a form of identification. And it also has a some historical information in there. And I think that is something that someone that has not studied anything about Moorish information, if they were to decide to get the Moorish American travel document, once they got it, they will begin to start learning a lot of things right away, because a lot of that information is already inside of the booklet.
So one of the
So
things
one of the
that
things that
my chief
my
um,
um,
acknowledges
acknowledges
is Noble
is
Drew
Noble Drew
Ali.
Ali.
Would you say?
Would you say?
Would I
Right.
be
Would I
accurate?
be accurate?
Yes, yes, you're right.
And again,
And
most
again,
people
most
don't
people
know
don't know
the role
the
that
role
Noble
that Noble
Drew Ali
Drew
has
Ali
in
has
terms
in
of
terms of
influencing our
influencing our
freedom and
freedom and
reminding this
reminding this
government of who
government
we
of who
are.
we are.
Right.
Um,
Um,
so when
so
men
when
come to
men
you
come to you
looking
looking
for
for
just some
just
relief
some relief
from
from
everything, brother,
everything,
just
just
not having
not
a
having
driver's
a driver's
license because they
license
have
because
child
they
support,
have child support,
not being able
Right.
to
not being able
travel
to
with their
travel
lady
with their lady
because
because
they
they
they can't
they
they
can't
can't cross the border
cross the
because
border
they don't have a
because they don't
document.
have a document.
And
Right.
then
And
the
then
joy
the
that so
joy
many
that so
men
many
have
men
with
have
feeling like they got
feeling
their
like they
life
got their
back to be
life
able
back
to
to be
do
able to
something.
do something.
They may not
They might
always
not
come to
always
you
come to you
first
first
with the
with
knowledge of
the
self,
knowledge
but
of
do you
self. Do
find
you
that
find
it,
that
it
it
happens anyway,
happens
like
anyway, like
organically?
organically?
I think it does. And oftentimes, the divide, well, I'll say this. There are more men that buy the travel document than women. But
Hmm.
however, I'm starting to realize a shift now. I'm starting to realize a shift of more women starting to also get the Moorish American travel document at a rate to where it's looking like they may surpass the men by the end of this year.
Oh
I don't know
wow.
why. Wow. I don't know why there are just so many more women getting the Moorish American travel document because before, uh, which this is now, I'm now in the third year. It's been 3 years. Um, Before, I mean, it was like maybe out of every 50 Moorish American travel documents, maybe 10 would be women. Women would get the Moorish American travel document.
So
But now,
what impact do
What
you think
impact do you think
identity
identity
has
has
on
on
a
a
family using
family using
the document?
the document?
I think it's
I think it's
minimized to just
minimized
a
to just
travel
a travel
document, quite
document, quite
frankly.
frankly.
I think
I
right,
it's so
think
much
it's so
more.
much more.
it's much more than a travel document, and I've mentioned that many times. It's a travel document, but it's also a universal pocket trust.
Ooh,
Um,
Oh,
it
good.
is a yes because it has an estate page behind the ID page where you can actually put your trust, mark your trust inside, and also put your wet autograph and your wet thumbprint seal inside the booklet. So the Moorish American travel document is an Aquarian document. It's totally unique. There's never been anything else like it.
But say
There's
more about
nothing else designed.
because most of
because
us
most
don't
of
know
us don't
anything
know anything
about that
about
either.
that either.
Say
Like,
more
Like,
about.
because I know
because
you're
I know
used to
you're used
talking
to
to a
talking
deaf
to a deaf
Hmm.
and being
and
challenged
being
by
challenged by
Moors about
Moors
this,
about
that, and
this,
the third.
that, and
I
the
don't
third.
think
I
this
don't think this
audience is that,
audience is that,
right? This
right?
is the
This is the
audience that
audience that
when you
when you
say you're
say
at
you're
China,
at China,
Hmm.
everybody doesn't know
everybody
why.
doesn't know why.
Oh, why is
When
he at
you
China?
see what I'm
Right.
You see
saying?
what I'm
When you
saying? When you
say
Yes.
say
that this
that this
is
is
that it has a
that it
wet
has a wet,
this audience
this
doesn't
audience
all
doesn't
know
all
what that the
know what
difference
Mm.
that the difference
between what that
what
means.
that means.
All right. All right. Overstood. Well, one of the ways to protecting yourself and your property is by establishing a trust. In that trust, there are many different kinds of trust. Primarily, if you're trying to establish a trust in the private, with dealing with identity and nationality and those things that are connected to the private side, a lot of Moorish Americans, they would first seek to get an irrevocable trust where they can pass down their properties and things like that to their beneficiaries, their heirs, which would be their children and others. So if someone wanted to signify their trust, which you can put your travel document also in your trust. There is actually a page behind the ID page where you can put the name of your trust and you can autograph that page. And every MAT-D comes with a set of instructions that shows you how to do that, how to autograph that particular estate page. The wet seal just simply means using wet ink and using your thumbprint and putting your thumbprint on that particular page where it says, in that particular area where it says seal. Because your thumbprint is really the highest seal. It's really the highest notary, is your own thumbprint. All right? Mm-hmm.
What role does the trust play in freeing up our families to benefit from knowing who they are on this land?
What role does the trust play in that?
Yes.
Well, the trust plays a major role in that because first and foremost, one of the things that Noble Drew Ali, which Noble Drew Ali, we call him the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, that he came to teach us was about civics, right? So we had to learn civics, which deals with nationality and citizenship. Those two components teach us how to move in the public and also in the private, right? And in his time among us, he established a trust for us. He established it and he recorded it on record at Cook County in Chicago so that the Moors would be able to protect their homes and everything by simply attaching themselves to that particular trust that he had created. So a trust can be used as a protection mechanism for anyone that has any property, anyone that has something that they want to pass down to their children, which are their heirs, anyone that has a business that would like to protect certain aspects of their business with a business trust. I mean, the trust topic is a really, really, really broad topic.
Right.
It takes months to really study and really get a good grasp on all of the functions of a trust. But starting out with the basics, the basic trust and the easiest trust to probably set forth would be the irrevocable trust. Those things that you want in your trust that are not going to change, that you're not going to have to take out and put it in someone or turn it over to someone else's hands. Those things that are always going to be there and be waiting there for your beneficiaries.
And what about the birth certificate? Because that's where some people know that we have a straw man identity, that we're functioning on straw man. And if most people know that, then usually there's a next step. So is understanding the difference between the straw man, authenticating the birth certificate, all of that necessary to stand on the contents, I would say, of the mind.
Good question. Knowing about the straw man is very important because it is the straw man that is always used against us. You see, authenticating the birth certificate is not necessary. It is not necessary to authenticate the birth certificate because you would never get hold of the original copy. They would never give it to you. And then second of all, the birth certificate is a bond. It is a fraud from its very creation and inception. So when the birth certificate was created, it was created to actually, in a nutshell, the birth certificate is similar to a death certificate. Because in order to have an estate that is passed down, you have to have what is called a decedent, a dead person, right? and
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a death certificate that is issued. So what they have done, being that the baby has come out and the baby is living, they have issued a certificate, and they call it a birth certificate, but because they put the name in what is called a straw name on a birth certificate, they automatically create what is called a decedent in a state law. And then it has a registrar on it, just like you have for a will. So it's like you're born, but then they have made you dead at the same time with the straw, with the birth certificate. You see? So now, instead of you moving about life, being a sentient being, meaning a natural person with a living soul, they only look at you as being an artificial entity, a fictitious being, a fictitious entity, because of this this straw name is in all caps, all capital letters, and it's in all capital letters, just like a name on a tombstone is in all capital letters, right? So all of the signs are there, and this is one of the ways that not only Aboriginal and Indigenous people have had their nationality and birthrights usurped, but many people have had their birthrights usurped throughout North America and in other parts of the world as well, with the straw and with the birth certificate, right?
I really appreciate you saying that. In fact, the public and the private is where I totally woke up. And like you,
Right.
I was already a medical physician.
Mm.
I had already been in the nation of Islam. I thought I knew who I was.
Right. Right.
I thought I was free.
Right.
I knew about politics, and I knew that you just couldn't trust it. But
Absolutely.
until I understood the public and the private,
Mhm.
it felt like I literally was Neo in the Matrix. Like everything became clear, and I was resistant. I'll tell you, be honest, brother Sharif,
Mhm.
is that because I had been in the nation, official in the nation,
Right.
uh, and loyal, and yet I had become free from religion and dogma.
Right.
When I first started hearing, my husband introduced me to a few things, by the way. But one of the things he told me was, there is no money. And I didn't understand
Right.
that. I thought that sounded like, these brothers, these conscious, these co-righteous teachers who trying to, like that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So I have a good girlfriend who studies money that I trusted as well. Now, I'm not saying I didn't trust my husband, but I didn't trust what looked like religious dogma or something. I didn't know.
Mm.
So she was like, "No, that's absolutely true. There is no money, and I've been trying to tell y'all that." So it wasn't until I really started to study that and understand the grip that it has had on our lives,
Mm.
that I fully was able to see the metaphysics was saying it, but it wasn't attaching it to law.
Mm.
So I
Right.
heard you say we need to know the difference between the public and the private,
Absolutely.
and we need to study civics. Can you make any recommendation? I know it's echoing. I'm so sorry. I can't fix it. I would be just thrown off energetically if I keep trying to fix it.
Well, as far as your question is about the public and private, right? Any kind of reading materials or this kind of thing?
Suggestions to this audience.
Well, suggestions is this: before you really tackle the public and private information, my suggestion is to study the 10 major law maxims. Because once you study the 10 major law maxims, you will begin to understand why they created the public, right? And you will be able to understand a lot of things that are in the public and the private based off of those 10 law maxims, and how these corporations try to navigate around that with color of law even. You see? So a lot of people dive off into the information, but they don't start at the very foundation with the major law maxims. And there's a particular booklet that you all can get. Actually, you can download it on Google. It's called Life, Law, and the UCC. And if I may, let me see if I can type it here for the group. It's called Life, Law, and the UCC. And then just put PDF and it should come up on Google. It's 45-page reading. And this is going to give you a lot of information on the basic foundational laws that every so-called judge and every lawyer, they all know this, right? But they don't put it out there because they can't deal with actual facts in the courtroom. They can only deal with presumptions. So this particular PDF, what it's going to do is it's going to bring you up to speed on this particular kind of information. And then towards the end, it's going to begin to get off into the public and how you deal with them in the public based off of the law maxims that you've already learned in that document. You see? So I always refer people to this particular PDF because I have a class that is, I originally started teaching a class here at China, but now one of my good brothers, he teaches it for me online, called the Compass and Square Training. This particular document is also used in our Compass and Square training course. And that is one of the main things that we emphasize, is learning the 10 major law maxims before moving forward. Otherwise, it would be kind of like putting the cart before the horse. If you run into a problem in the public and private, you wouldn't really know what to do because you don't know the foundational law. You're just simply being violated by color of law. You see.
I think you dropped so many terms that in our study time, in our tribe, we can explore some of these things in Rebirth Woman and our Rebirth Sunday school, because color of law is a study, the public and the private is a study, the straw man is a study.
Right. It's all it's all a study. You have to know the terminology in this thing. But one of the things, my whole thing is about making the tools so that people can get some kind of immediate relief, like right now, because I know that as time goes by day, the people are simply running out of time, right? They're running out of time. As you see these gas prices, you see that there's no food in the food reserves, right? I know that people are going to need to use things right away. So the Moorish American Travel Document is kind of that thing that says, okay, whether you studied a whole bunch of law or not, or you have already set up your estate or not, here, I'm going to give you a booklet where you can do all of it right now, even if you haven't put your nationality documents in it. All you need to do is claim an L or a Bay, right? Because, and why? Because that's already registered in the Library of Congress. There is no legal due process for the Moorish surnames L or Bay. So that means any one of our people can just use L or Bay and they can't do nothing about it. right? That's already law. That's already codified. So essentially, when our people do that and they get the Moorish American travel document, they automatically have legal standing.
Okay.
Just because they have the document, whether it's the Moorish American travel document or whether it's a Moorish national card. Once you put L or Bay on your name, your appellation, you automatically end up having a de jure standing in civics.
Okay, so you mentioned de jure and de facto again, and we talked about that privately, so I do want you to talk about that in a minute. I want to take some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Let me see. Someone said, "Can you?" Our sister Tamar said, "Can you explain more about the wet ink?" Please post your questions in the comments.
Okay. Can I explain more about the
Wet ink.
wet ink? Oh, wet ink is just wet ink. You know how you get a like an ink stamp pad at Office Max or whatever? That's just wet ink. You can take your thumb, put your thumb in it, and then put your thumbprint on a piece of paper. Right? The wet ink is used. It has some kind of historical value to it too, but when you use the wet ink, it has a lot to do with the document having more of a de jure presentation with the wet ink versus a digital autograph or a digital thumbprint.
Okay. So now,
It gives a document more standing.
okay. Can you define de jure now?
De jure means correct. It just means correct. De facto means incorrect. Right?
And why is this government a de facto government? Or
Well, one of the main reasons it's de facto is because Congress adjourned sine die 1861. That means that Congress just walked out. So if Congress just walked out, that's the end of the government. And then from that point, you had the central bankers that arranged to overthrow the republic between 1961 and 1971 by instituting and bringing in the democracy. So the democracy platform is a platform that was created and constructed by the central banking powers. The de jure government on the land was the republic. The republic was the United, small letter U, S-A, United States of America, whom de jure nationals, Moorish American nationals, are to be the American citizens, American state citizens of. But what happened with that is that why was it so important for Noble Drew Ali to come to us in regards to this nationality issue and the de jure nationality issue? Is because when we go to the original Constitution, Amendment 13, it says that the descendants of Africans were never intended to be citizens. Well, why is citizenship important? Because you can have a nationality, but why is citizenship important? Well, in order to be a citizen, you first have to have a nationality, because nationality is in the private, citizenship is in the public. But Noble Drew Ali also told us that you must have and present a free national name and a creed in order to be a party to the free national constitution. So he says everyone that comes to America, whether it's Italian or Chinese or whatever, they all present their national names of their forefathers, meaning their surnames, right? So if someone comes there, for instance, if they're Japanese, you know they're Japanese by looking at their name, right? You know that they're Italian by looking at their surname, right? So he said it should be the same for us. So we did not have our Moorish surnames, thus we could not be citizens to the de jure United States of America Republic. You see? So when he came, he started giving us our Moorish surnames. And that put us in a situation to where we can grab back onto the civics and become true American citizens. Why? Because not only are we true American citizens, but we are bound to the American continents by heritage and birthright, being the aboriginals of the land. You see? So all of it had to come together and fit. So all of it had to come together and fit, and that was one of the reasons why it was so important for him to come, so that we can have our civics and be able to move.
Thank you. I do want to interrupt you, especially with the echo. We have another good question, and then we'll start wrapping it up. There's more that you want us to know about the Matt D and the travel kit that you've created. Tamara asks another great question, which
Hmm.
is that the reason why Black Americans have no one sitting at the UN table because we don't have a nationality?
That is absolutely correct, because black is not a nationality, right? So you must have you must present a nationality in order to be at the UN table. But don't get it twisted. These people at the UN, they are the ones that were responsible for the creation of the birth certificate in the first place. So we have to understand that side too, because you're talking about the IMF, the UN, right? Same bunch of people. Central bankers, same bunch of people, different names. But yes, black is not a nationality. There was never no black land and all of this other stuff, right? Our ancestors, they left their names on the international record, and that international record is also known over here at China. They have Moors in their history too. So I found out that that there's history about Moors in some of their old writings. So this thing is real. So now, knowing my ancestral lineage on the land, this is getting back to that first question that you were telling me. Why the switch for more? From that to more? Well, I didn't really switch, because when we're talking about Cherokee, Choctaw, Apache, Navajo, all of these different ancestral lineage, really what they were citizenships that were on the land in those particular areas. You know, like I know, we descend from Mississippi, right? So the Mississippians were predominantly either the Natchez, or they were the Choctaw and some of the other Chickasaw, right? These were actually citizenships of territories that were there. It doesn't mean that they were a different people. It mean that they had their own rules, they had their own regulations, maybe some differences in culture, right? It's pretty much like the difference between someone that is a New Yorker and someone from Texas, right?
Right.
They do things differently. They have a different constitution, but they can still go and get on a plane and go break bread with each other and come on back home, right? So it's kind of that situation. It wasn't so much of we were a different people. It was just that we had a choice, right? And sometimes you had tribes, you had these different, I don't want to call them tribes, but you had these different nations that joined on with other indigenous nations, right? We also had confederacies too. So our ancestors have always been exercising civics the whole time. They were doing this long ago. This is nothing new. The thing is that due to our demise from following our lower self, and also due to traitors that were among us in the past that cut side deals and things with the Europeans, that the descendants were shut off from all of that knowledge, right? And that knowledge had to return back to us. And this is one of the major importances of having Noble Drew Ali come back to teach us nationality and civics. And if you were to study the record, we will find that a lot of those organizations that are part of the so-called conscious community today all started after Noble Drew Ali. Right? If we check the record, you won't find any of them that existed before Noble Drew Ali started the old Canaanite temple in 1913. Wow, so there was a wealth of knowledge that he brought, and what most people don't know, he, like I, was also an international Moor. As Noble Drew Ali also lived abroad. He also lived in Egypt at one time. He was a traveler for the work that he was doing. So he knew the importance of nationality, just like I know the importance of nationality. I was looking at, I know that I'm not some black person. I've always known my ancestral lineage. When I was in school, they tried to throw that African American stuff on me, and I told my teacher, "Nope, that ain't me. That's not who I am." Right? Right. And I've always had a sense of that. And one of my last discussions that I had with my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was about our Aboriginal indigenous lineage. It was the last conversation that I had with him. And, he sat down and he looked me in the eye and he just started telling me some things as if it was just the last time he was going to ever talk to me. But he talked to me in a way that I don't know why he was telling me this stuff, because he had other children. He had so many grandchildren, but for some reason, he would always kind of get this information to me out of everyone else. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe he just saw something in my future or something. But yeah, it's really interesting how he's just saying.
You're right. My grandma was the same way. And my father actually. Thank God my father was such an advocate for us knowing our identity as Choctaw from the natural trade, from Port Gibson, Mississippi, which I would always look at the pictures of the Choctaw that they currently have on the internet, and it's like, these people look like Asians.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started to do more research and certainly coming into my own nationality, understanding what the copper colored people are. It was Grand Sheik Rod Taj who taught me.
Taj Tariq Bey. Mm-hmm.
That's right. We were studying one night.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a way of saying, open this book. Now go to this. Now read it. Read it out loud. Read it slow. And he was he had me reading a bill or something that was written in Philadelphia. I can't remember right now today. But the point was our identity is documented.
Absolutely.
And so all these folks with their such and much and their degree, it is really already documented who we were from the status as white to even when they started calling us Negro. So I digress. But I just wanted supporting what you said in terms of it wasn't that far and that long ago that our grandparents had this information and they were trying to tell us, but we weren't fully listening. So we
Right.
have a couple of questions. I put one
Right.
on the screen,
Okay. What are the
and
name of the? Oh,
mhm,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, please.
What are the names of the indigenous tribes of the Carolina, specifically North Carolina? Well, my paternal side is from North Carolina, and I've researched my family background on that side. As far as my father's grandmother, which she was from the Kittiwah Mound areas, that's Cherokee. So Aniwaya, same thing, right? That is the predominant uh, particular, I don't like to use the word tribe, but let's say nation that was there for North Carolina and some other parts around Kentucky and northern, what is called Georgia area today. Can he refer us a book about human rights? You know, I'll be honest with you. A lot of this information that I get, I've studied it a long time ago. I used to own a bookstore when I was in my 20s, and I didn't bring those books with me to China. And people think I have a library here. I just retain a bunch of information. I have mostly Chinese books there. But when it comes to human rights, I would say nationality and birthrights will be the way for you to enforce any human rights issues that you come across. Because what happens is you have people that don't have their nationality. When they go to try to enforce human rights issues, they end up doing what? Because they don't have a nationality, they end up resulting to trying to enforce civil rights, which we all know by now that civil rights is a bunch of garbage and it doesn't work, right? Because, you know, instead of civil rights, we should be dealing with civics. There are already contractual agreements that are on the table for our people. There are already obligations that the oppressors have had with our ancestors that they have gotten away from performing their obligations simply because the people have been in a de facto status. They haven't had their nationality, right? So nationality is really the order of the day, is to have the nationality, and if you want to move in the public, to have the proper citizenship status. I heard that Cherokee isn't the real name for the natives. Well, you have to understand that whether it's real or not, and it's just like I mentioned Choctaw, it's really Choctaw, right? This name, Choctaw or Choctaw, was an actual chief. But what happened over time with the French that came over, some of the names of our particular nations they couldn't pronounce, or they had a hard time pronouncing them, so they changed them. So Choctaw is actually French, right? Cherokee is actually Cherokee. So if you talk to a French person and you go into their history and they talk, well, they want to talk about the Cherokee, they'll say Cherokee, right? But that's simply because they made other ways to pronounce some of the names of some of our nations that were already there. So whether they're real or not, that's really not, the names can change on anything, right? It doesn't mean that what that particular thing is not real,
And
right?
they have changed, and that's why
Right.
our identity has been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
We are still suffering from a case of identity theft as a people, and
Mm-hmm.
we are it requires us to have a big wake up. Well, I found something that you did right on your IG that I want to share as we close out. And if people want to know more about how to get to you, I'm going to put this information right on the screen. So I want to share really quick, if you don't mind, bear with me,
Yes,
brother, at this
please.
time. You did such an excellent job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me here. And
Here we
you know,
go.
I'm always a supporter of what you're doing. I've been watching you for a long time, and I say,
Thank
you
you.
know, I gotta help my Choctaw sister. We
I
gotta get
appreciate
something
it.
together.
I wish the sound was better, but because there's so much more to Bluetooth. But this is inexhaustible. So I want to share this right from your page.
The
All right.
matriarch and the Moorish movement bring to where the
Uh oh.
ministry of our fraternal rights and our linkage to our fraternal, is not even talked about anymore. But let's see what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali has said in regards to nationality and where your national name actually comes from, right? All right. Let's go. This is Moorish literature. Let's go to the first page. Now you see this. It now appears a good idea for those whose duty it is to write for the various journals to find out what the national name of the forefathers of these people was. Forefathers. Go look up the word forefathers in the dictionary, right? It is a male ancestor. National name of the forefathers. This is how we know that nationality passes down through the father, because the father even determines the gender, whether coming from X or Y. Now let's look again. Thus, he is separated from the illustrious history of his forefathers, who were the founders of the first civilization of the old world, right? The founders of the civilization, the forefathers, right? But now we're going into this thing where people are saying the matriarch. Matriarch is the founder of all civilization. But if you're part of the Moorish movement, let's see what the man who started the Moorish movement and gave us our nationality and birthrights has to say, right? Because it's here. For without a free national name, with a descent flag of your forefathers. He didn't say foremothers, forefathers, right? There is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. You see this, Morris? So this other stuff that people are talking, this is an original copy, right? Here we go again. We Moors must maintain a grand treasure just in the days of our forefathers. Then you are a nation. It's in here for those that have eyes to see and that can deal with actual facts. It's in here. Other groups of people in the city have been using the dress of our forefathers and imitating them, all but the olive hue they cannot get. Forefathers, here it is. It will remind the descendants of these people of the time when their forefathers were the main people to spread the most progressive ideas of civilization. How were ideas of civilization spread? Because men go out as envoys from any nation. They go to war, they do trade, they're out in the field. It was the forefathers that spread the nationality around the world, people, while the women remained at home with the children. It was the forefathers that created the empire, people. right? This is the reason why, one of the reasons why nationality comes from the forefathers, because we laid the groundwork for it. We went into other lands lifting up the flag while our women were at home. All right, people, deal with the facts.
Well, it's dealing with the facts. But see, the reason I put that out is because what I started realizing is that in the Moorish movement, the a lot of times the men, our position is being challenged, right? So whenever you have something and you have information, you have to learn how to balance it. You have to balance the information. We know about the divine feminine principle. We know about the divine masculine principle, but see, those things have to be balanced, right? And things are going off balance to the part to where a lot in the Moorish divine and national movement, you hear a lot of divine mate. I mean, you have women out here that are twerking and they're talking about divine mate, divine feminine. It's
Come
like,
on now, teach.
you know, it's like, come on. I see what you're doing, but you're pushing this narrative, and then also it's like we have to have some alpha males that's going to be able to protect the divine feminine. Because if you don't take care of both sides, what are you going to end up with?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
You're going to end up with women that know about the divine feminine, but they don't have any men to help protect them.
That's
So
it.
men, we're put here to provide a service to the women. In a sense, that's really what it's all about. That's why we do what we do, right? Men, we're put here to fix things, right? We're put here to build stuff and fix stuff. If something gets broke, the women, they looking at us. Or aren't you going to climb up on top of that roof and stop
Right,
the roof from leaking, right? When the power goes out, hey Dad, the power's out, right? Right? Everyone's looking at us to be the ones to do the repair on everything, and that's where we're at right now. That's why reconditioning this male energy is so important right now. It's super important, right? But the whole family structure has to be able to come together with balance. We have to understand that we can't lose sight of the importance of both male and female when it comes to our community. That is an important, super important thing. And that's what I was trying to emphasize, because a lot of times we hear that, let's say this is a whole, a
That's
lot of
me.
times, well,
And this
a
is
lot of
perfect.
times it's just, I feel like sometimes we don't want the movement to be invaded by, like, and this is nothing against LGBT or anything like that, but we don't want this movement to become something like that with all of the just overly female energy, right? The men have to be able to stand up and see real manhood and be able to take a stance and move out. That's my whole point, right? To create men, you got to have soldiers. You got to have things that's going to be able to support our community and to protect our women. And that's what that information is for, because our forefathers, they did carry the flag into other nations. They did fight and die in battle, right? They did do the architecture and the construction and all of that stuff that people are still mesmerized over. And when you look back in Moorish history, right? It's the forefathers. But the foremothers are what? They're the nurturers. They're the ones that brought us into existence, right? They're the ones that first gave us the fez, right? The fez is the womb. The tassel that's on the fez is the umbilical cord. So once again, everything that we have done and that we do is really for her. I yield.
That is such a perfect divine setup for
Isn't it?
closing out the whole purpose of bringing you to a tribe of women who have been nurturing their divine feminine. And while there are so many commercialized twerkers, no, I'm just kidding, just kidding. But so many sisters who have monetized the divine feminine, it
Right.
is time. I know for my role as gosh, as a priest, but also as a matriarch,
Right.
as a cultural custodian. I see what's going on, and we can't be juicy and feminine and all of this stuff and conflicted when all hell breaks loose. We have to
Absolutely.
have a different conversation, sisters. And so that's why I'm inviting you to join the mothership, which I call our membership, because there are things that we have gotten so far away from that we must return to. And everyone in our family may not be on board, but you are the one that you've been waiting for. Our brother here did not wait on anyone to give him jurisprudence, meaning jurisdiction. The law already gave it to you. And so just like we know spiritual law, it's time for us to call forth our sons, our nephews, our uncles, even if we have to do it on the ancestral realm, to show us how to be a linkage in our family. And so I thank everyone who hung in here and shared. And I thank everyone who's tuning in later to this broadcast. Now, Brother Shariff, will you tell people how they can get to you and maximize your services?
Yes, I've actually typed it and it should be in the chat right now if you all can see that.
No, they don't see it.
Okay, they can get in contact. You can reach out to my website at www.yourmatd.org. That's yourmatd.org, right? You must use the www in front. And that's how you would get in contact with me. And not with me, but be able to access some of the services that I have there. And also my email is yourmattd@163.com. yourmattd@163.com. So that would be
it's in the comments here. The website.
Mm-hmm. That's the website, and this would be my email here.
And I will see if there's a way to do a private conversation for those of you who are already in the tribe. Because what happens is some of you all are shy, and you ask me all of the questions that you didn't ask publicly. Some people still have good government jobs, so they don't want anybody to know that they're here. I know you. I know who you are.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you so much for having. Don't you go anywhere as I close out the broadcast. If you all have any questions, please let me know. We're gonna cover some of these that our brother has shared with us, like the Honorable. And there's a powerful teaching I did called Power and Dominion that I will make available to those who join the membership. So those of you who are here, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Thank you for hanging in here with me through the echo.
Yes, thank you, and thank everyone here. And I really love the name, the Mothership. So for all of our divine feminine noblesse that's out there, join aboard, get aboard the Mothership. with our priestess here, Latanya, and I'm quite sure she's going to take you on a grand ride.
I say, I say, I say.